All right, welcome everyone. Right now we have a few people that are trying to log on that are having some tech issues, but I'm just going to begin the presentation and I'll start. I have a PowerPoint I'm going to show you guys first, and then at the end there'll be time for questions if folks are able to get on tonight. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Oh, really quick. Before I share my screen, just wanted to let you know a little bit about myself. My name is Devin Schmidt, and I am the owner at Day Yoga Studio in Dayton, Ohio. We have two locations here in Dayton. Tonight I'm working from home, but we have two studios, and we've been open for about 12 years. And I've been running teacher training almost that entire time, probably about 10 or 11 years of that. Trained probably hundreds and hundreds of people by this time. I typically run about 2 programs a year, normally here in Dayton, but this year, of course, we're doing the 200-hour in Dominica this summer. One year I did run one in Costa Rica also before the pandemic. So it's nice to be able to do these international trainings again. So I am a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, and then in addition, an Ayurvedic health counselor. And then also currently in the process of getting my 800-hour yoga therapy training, which I should finish this year. So that's a little bit about me. And then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. All right, I believe it is sharing now. All right, Shannon, it looks like you jumped back on. Are you able to hear me okay now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
All right, wonderful. Okay. I had started talking a little bit already, just kind of introduced myself and just got the slides up. Can you see the slides okay?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'll just spend a little time going over everything about the training. And then at the end, if you have any questions, you can let me know. There are some other people that signed up. I haven't seen them pop up yet. So we will also have a recording available so I can send it to anybody that's not on tonight live. So the teacher training is a 200-hour training in Dominica this summer with myself. And then I'm also collaborating with True Nature. And it also looks like I have Kristen Luna Ray as a guest teacher that will be coming along if you are familiar with her. But the training is running July 17th to August 4th in Dominica. What's included? So, of course, the 200-hour teacher training that is recognized through Yoga Alliance. 18 nights accommodations at the Jungle Bay Center that the retreat takes place, or sorry, not the retreat. I also lead retreats, and I keep saying that the training takes place at, although it will kind of be like a retreat because we will be in a beautiful place, but just doing training at the same time. So 18 nights accommodations, 3 whole meals a day, transportation to and from the airport and the retreat center. So that what that means is as soon as you land at the airport in Dominica, there's a shuttle that normally takes the entire group to the retreat center or the training center in this case. Also, there's 2 days off during the 18 days to primarily give time for resting, just because 18 straight days is a lot for training. These are very long days. You're fully immersed in the training. So we do have 2 days off, and you can choose to either rest, or there are some optional excursions and group activities that we can do on those days. Training manual is also included, which I will pass out when we get to Dominica. And then also continued support and resources once the training is over. So the topics of study with this 200-hour training, we cover 3 main styles: Vinyasa yoga, gentle yoga, and yin yoga. Because of that, it's a really well-rounded education. Of course, I'm biased, but you will be proficient in all three of those styles. So it really makes it so that you can go into any environment and feel comfortable teaching. It could be more of a gym environment, or if you want to work one-on-one with people, maybe more, gentle yoga or whatever specific needs they might have. You'll be ready to work with any demographic and any style. In addition to vinyasa, gentle, and yin yoga, we also cover restorative yoga, prenatal yoga, and kids yoga. It doesn't mean that you'll be trained in depth in those areas, but we do touch upon it during the 200 hours, but you will be thoroughly trained in the vinyasa, gentle, and yin yoga. We also cover during the training class sequencing, such as using a peak pose. If you're teaching a yoga class, maybe you want camel pose, for example, to be the peak pose. And this training will give you the tools and the knowledge to know how to sequence a class, building up to that peak pose. What areas of the body might you want to get ready for coming into a deep back bend, if we're using that camel example. So class sequencing, using a peak pose, also themes. Those themes could be things like creating a class based off of the seasons. It could be a theme like a mantra or letting go or an affirmation or really anything, but it makes your classes very unique and that you can create your own classes using the themes. And then we'll also cover how to plan classes based around energetics. We'll learn about, there's Sanskrit words, we'll talk more about them, but Brahmana, Langana, and Samana. And those things are the energetics of yoga, such as having a practice that makes you feel more calm when you're done, or maybe a class that makes you feel more energized, or maybe a class that makes you feel more balanced when you're finished. So you'll know how to sequence your classes based off of how you want your students to feel when the practice is over. Which is really nice depending on the time of day too. Like if you're teaching an evening class, you want the students to feel more calm before they go home and go to bed. Or if you're teaching a morning class, it's nice to have the tools to be able to teach them a more energizing class to wake them up. We also spend lots of time practice teaching in Dominica. We start very easy, just partnering up with somebody first in the group. And then we kind of branch out from there, and eventually you'll come up to the front of the room and teach. And we take baby steps so that by the time you get to those parts where you're teaching in front of the room, you're ready for it. And everything is leading up to the final practicum. At the end of the training, we spend the last few days, depending on how many people are in the training, where everybody will teach an hour-long yoga practice that you will create yourself. We also cover verbal cues, physical adjustments, and alignment principles. Some other topics of study, we also cover in-depth pranayama, which is breathing practices, and meditation. You'll learn several different pranayama practices throughout the training. We also cover mantras. Mantras are repetitions of words. They're very similar to affirmations. So they're repetitions of words that have different meanings behind them. And we'll also cover mudras. Mudras are different hand gestures that we use in yoga that also have different meanings and different energetic qualities behind them. In addition, we will cover subtle anatomy, chakras, nadis, koshas, and vayus. If you don't know what those things are, don't worry about it. We cover it thoroughly in the training. And then we'll also cover physical anatomy and physiology. And then some other things we go over: yoga history and philosophy. We use the Yoga Sutras book to really base off what we will talk about with philosophy. And we talk about the 8 limbs of yoga. We also will talk about the ethics of a yoga teacher, Ayurveda, lifestyle, and Kriyas. And again, if you don't know what those are, no worries, we will cover them in depth in the training. And we also, towards the end of the training, go over yoga as a business practice. So that could mean if you want to open up a studio someday, or just if you want to know more about how you need to get insurance as a teacher, and an LLC, and just all the business aspects that relate to being a yoga teacher. All right. The requirements of the training, it's a 200-hour training technically, but 180 of those hours are the contact hours that are on site in Dominica. So we get those additional hours. It's actually more than 20. It's really slightly more than a 200-hour program. But Yoga Lines only honors 200-hour trainings, but there's 180 hours in Dominica. And then we'll get the other hours with some of the other requirements that I'll go over in a moment. If you happen to miss any hours while we're there, maybe there's a morning where you're not feeling well or something like that. There are ways to make up hours. I'm not sure if you, Shannon, or some of the other people that are signed up are all going to live in the Dayton area. I'm assuming with this training being more international, that will get people from all over, but there are opportunities to either make up in Dayton if it's easy for you to get here, or if you already live in the area, or you can also do it through Zoom. I offer Zoom where I'm in class time here in Dayton, and you would just live stream. Hopefully that doesn't happen to anybody in the group, but just know if it does happen, there are opportunities to get those makeup hours taken care of. There's also personal practice and teaching hours that you are expected to do outside of the training. So we do a lot of practice and teaching and stuff in the training group, but after training is over, you'll go home and spend some time partnering up with, it could be friends or family members or co-workers or whoever that you want it to be, and just practice teach with them, and then also get some personal practice hours in. We also have a requirement of karma yoga hours. Karma yoga hours are basically, you can think about it like community volunteering hours, and you can do those. There's 5 of them, and you can do those helping out at a soup kitchen. We've had some past trainees help maybe with like a marathon or a race, guiding people through like a stretch at the beginning of the race. It could be picking up trash in your neighborhood or just something like that. Just some way that you're giving back to the community without expecting anything in return. We also do typically a karma service project on site in Dominica, but that's included in the contact hours. So those karma yoga hours would be separate. We also have assisting and observing hours that you would do when the training is over. If you are here in Dayton, you can get those with me. If you're not in the area, you can really go to any yoga studio and just observe. It's 5 of those. So either observing 5 hours, or if you know the studio owner or maybe a teacher in the area and they're willing to let you be a little bit more involved and assist, you can do that. It just has to be either assisting or observing. And then there's also a quiz, a final written test, and a final practicum. So the quiz we take about halfway through the training on site in Dominica. The final written test we take towards the end of the training. And then the final practicum I mentioned earlier, everything is kind of leading up to those last few days where everybody in the group will teach a full hour-long practice in Dominica. And the only people that will be present are just those in our training. So you're just teaching to me and to your fellow trainees. All trainees have 3 months after the last training date to complete all requirements without an additional $25 monthly charge. So what that means is that once training is over in Dominica in August, you have 3 months from that time to get all those extra requirements in. Usually people have no problem finishing them, but if it does take longer than 3 months, you can still get stuff into me after that. There's just a $25 monthly charge.
Hey, Devin.
Yes.
Can I ask real quick on the personal training or the personal practice hours and the teaching hours?
Mm-hmm.
So those all are the 3 months after. Everything that we do in there is the 180 that are like part of the on-site requirement, correct?
Yeah. So the 180 hours, that's all the training in Dominica. And then really the 3 things right after that, the personal practice, teaching hours, karma yoga hours, and then the assisting and observing hours. Those are the things that you need to get done after the training is over. Yeah.
I'm assuming it's a little bit set up like the last ones that you have done like within the Dayton area. The personal practice and the teaching hours, do you remember how many there are? Just so like in my head, I know what that looks like for the 3 months after.
Yeah. So it's for the practice hours for personal practice, I tell everybody to aim to get at least 3 hours a week of personal practice. That could be that you just practice on your mat on your own. You don't have, it doesn't have to be a guided practice, but it could be, or maybe if you do anything online, if there's a teacher online that you like, it could be with them. It could be coming to the studio and taking classes. It doesn't have to be a day yoga. It could be anywhere. And I think that for you guys, it'll just be 10 hours of personal practice and then 10 hours of teaching hours. So actually the requirement is much lower than, I kind of recommend that people try to, after training is over, just try to do like 3 classes a week as much as you can, but you only have to log like 10 hours. So it's pretty manageable. And then the karma yoga hours is 5 hours, and then assisting and observing is 5 hours. So it's pretty doable. It's actually much more manageable than the training we have here in Dayton. Here it's a lot more hours because it's over a longer period of time, but I'm trying to make it so that people who do the training in Dominica can finish sooner.
Thanks for that clarification. That was helpful.
You're welcome. Okay, so required reading. So there is some homework, and you have not a lot of time, but there might be some of this that you can get done in Dominica, or you can also get it done before the training. And then of course you have time after the training that you could get the readings done. So the required books, there's a manual that is included in the tuition cost that I will pass out when we get there. And then there is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Teaching Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga Practice Manual, Complete Guide to Yin Yoga, Yoga Anatomy, and Chakra Meditation. These are all on the True Nature website and the Day Yoga website, if you forget what they are. And like I said, you can either read those before the training, during the training, or after the training. There's no required reading technically ahead of time, but sometimes people like to get started on things. So if you have the time, it might make it easier when the training is over. Completion and credentials. So I mentioned earlier, it's a 200-hour yoga teacher training. Our school is through Yoga Alliance. So once you complete all of the requirements, which consist of attending all the contact hours, either in Dominica, or again, if you had makeup hours, hopefully that doesn't happen, but we can work that out. So attending all the contact hours and additional homework assignments, and the non-contact hours, which I mentioned earlier what those were. So once you complete all of the requirements, you can choose to register with Yoga Alliance. So there will be some homework that is passed out in Dominica that has some homework. A lot of it's based off of the readings that you'll do in the books. And then again, you have time to get that in after the training is over. A sample day. Every day will be different. So this is really just a sample, but we will be getting up pretty early every day because there's a lot of hours to get in a short period of time. So we'll have a morning practice from 6 to 7:30 almost every day. Normally the morning practice will be more of our energizing practice. And then we have breakfast at 7:30 to 8:30. And then we'll come back from breakfast, and normally at that time, we'll get into pranayama and meditation. If we're not doing pranayama and meditation, we normally will go over like maybe a sutras discussion or philosophy or something like that. And then from 9:30 to 12, we'll have training time, which could be a variety of things that we cover. It could be going over yoga poses. It could be going over physical adjustments, or some of the other topics that we cover, like, you know, the 8 limbs, or kids yoga, prenatal yoga, Ayurveda. It could be any of those things that are plugged into that time frame. And then we'll have lunch every day from 12 to 1. And then from 1 to 6:30, we'll come back and do more training. And then 6:30 to 7:30, we'll have dinner. And then 7:30 to 9, we'll have an evening practice. And the evening practices are going to be gentle yoga, restorative, or yin practices, just to help everybody wind down and go to sleep at night. About Jungle Bay. So Jungle Bay is the center that we're having this training. So I just have some things on here about Jungle Bay, and also just some things to do nearby and on the facilities. So at Jungle Bay, there's 180-degree views of the ocean. So it's really a beautiful place to train in. It's really just absolutely gorgeous. I haven't been there, but Joshua, the owner of True Nature, has just been, he said that this was the place that he really thinks that we should hold a training at. Just the place is just kind of meant for a training, but it's also very, very beautiful. The housing is in luxury villas, and there are shared and single accommodations. There are different pricing tiers for those. There's an infinity swimming pool on site. There's an indoor and outdoor gourmet Caribbean restaurant. I actually have a couple of friends that I found out, a couple of my snorkeling, scuba diving friends that have actually been to Jungle Bay because of the snorkeling around the area. They're not yoga people, but they went there to go snorkeling and scuba diving. And they stayed there, and they said that the facilities are all very sustainable. They try to use everything in nature and nearby and on site, and just in that area. So it's just supposed to be a really cool place. They have spa services available. There's hiking trails on the premises, and there's also a hike. I don't know if this one is from Jungle Bay or just nearby, but I was reading that there's a hiking trail that can take us to a heated thermal waterfall. There's mineral hot springs. Of course, there's other things that you can do: kayaking, snorkeling, whale watching, or scuba diving if you're into that sort of thing. And then we typically will do a community service project. I think I mentioned that before at some point. Some examples from past trips that we have taken. One year we went and spent a morning at a school in Costa Rica when we did the training there, and we helped the kids paint a mural. And then another year when we went to Greece, we picked up trash on the beach, which surprisingly there was a ton of trash and cigarettes on that beach. So another year we helped a family paint their house. So we just do things like that. We don't spend a ton of time. Normally it's just a morning or afternoon, but it's just a way to give back to the community and where we're visiting. So it's not just like we're tourists, we're coming there and also giving back in some way. And then just some things about the island itself of Dominica. It's a mountainous island in the Caribbean. It's known as the nature island of the Caribbean because all of the nature that's there. 2/3 of the island is covered in rainforest, which is pretty cool. The island has volcanoes, bubbling sulfur springs, waterfalls, rivers, beaches, and plenty of nature, flora, and fauna. It's actually home to the world's second largest hot spring, and it's called Boiling Lake. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I'm sure that that's an excursion that we can probably take. Registration and some additional resources. You can save $300 off tuition if you register by February 1st. You can register at True Nature, and I can put that in the chat box if you need me to, or you might already have that available. And then you can learn more about the studio, and you can learn more about me if you go to dayyogastudio.com. And then any of the books I mentioned, you can purchase those on Amazon or Kindle. So the manual is included in the training. However, the additional books are extra. And they're very reasonably priced. They're like, a lot of them are just like $20, or in some cases you can find them cheaper. So it's not like buying like a college textbook. It's very reasonable. And I find that I still use my yoga books long-term. And that is all the basics. Do you have any other questions, Shannon?